Okay, so the Last of Us TV show takes us somewhere that we never really saw in the game. In that we woke up playing as Sarah on the night of the outbreak, and after her death we picked up as Joel 20 years later. However, a TV show can take us into new and interesting places because it's not as focused on making sure the player's engaged. Typically in a game, you tend to keep things centered around one character so that the player feels like they're experiencing things through them and they very much imprint on that one person. It's why so many games had silent protagonists back in the day, and it's a technique that tends to work when you're playing a video game. However, TV shows can do things differently. Not like that, Halo, not like that. Anyway, TV shows can do things differently, and that's where The Last of Us has taken the opportunity to show us flashbacks to years before the outbreak, days prior, and then right after the world just collapsed. Throughout this video, I'm going to be discussing the 3 key scenes in The Last of Us that take us back to the past and really make this show infinitely more terrifying. If you enjoy the video, please hit the thumbs up button, and make sure you subscribe for Last of Us breakdowns every week until we've milked the entire thing dry. Anyway, with that out of the way, thank you for clicking this. Now let's get into the breakdown. Okay, so the first 2 scenes very much act as bookends of each other. In the first, we have a scientist theorizing how cordyceps could lead to the end of the world, and the second one deals with a scientist realizing that the end is now upon us. This very much sets up the threat of the infected and how we will lose as a species because of it. However, the third one cements that there's more facets to it, and instead it shows that humanity will also have a hand in this too. We are our own worst enemies, and the fact this third flashback was included is very important to letting us know who the true enemy is in all of this. I know it's cliche to be like, humanity is the real enemy, but there's a reason that this cliche is there in the first place, and it's not because we're good at having civil conversations. Things are often done out of fear, and we'll discuss why the soldiers could have killed those people later on and the fear that drove them to it. However, we have to discuss the first scene first, and we pick up in 1968, decades before the cordyceps outbreak. Here we catch something a little close to home, as we initially see the topic of conversation being an influenza pandemic. We've just lived through a big one, and like the scientist says, we always find a way out of it eventually. John Hannah seems calm and collected throughout this, and though it's a struggle, we've seen ourselves that there is light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to things like this. However, when the subject changes to fungi, the mood drops, and there's a far more bleak outlook than the optimistic view he's just shared. Rattling off a chilling monologue, he hammers home the idea that there's absolutely no cure, and in all eventualities, that we lose. This is very much the case in what follows as well. We watch the outbreak happen from Sarah's point of view, and killing her off shows just how bleak the entire thing is. Now, I must admit, every time a TV show or movie kills off a kid, I'm like, you know what? I respect that, and it's for a good reason too. Hollywood is heavily sanitized a lot of the time, and it must take a lot of back and forth with the studio to be like, them kids. Sarah's death very much cements this idea that it's a lose-lose situation, and there's not going to be some big happy outcome to this. It's a necessary move to take to show us that the scientist was indeed right, and when soldiers are out here shooting innocent fathers and daughters, then, humanity has lost its way a bit. Now this is immediately followed up by a scene with another child's death, and though it was necessary to kill them, you see exactly why the scientist was so doom and gloom. Joel's emotionless face says it all as they dump their body on the fire, and it sums up just how far we've fallen. Now, episode 2 has us going to Abu Ratna. When I dropped my episode 2 breakdown, I did get some comments saying that Abu actually means Mrs., but they should have put that in the subtitles, mate. How was I supposed to know? I'm a YouTuber. I'm a moron. I don't know. Anyway, we see her being brought in by the military to inspect a corpse infected by the cordyceps. It's very by the book, and though she's alarmed initially by being brought in, the situation seems to calm down once the military man reassures her in the car. After discovering the cordyceps in the subject's mouth, though, things change and fear washes over her. In the back room, she instructs him to bomb the city, and it hammers home just how dire the situation is. Knowing it could get out, she'd rather destroy the entirety of Jakarta in the hopes of at least quarantining it, and we know that several cities adopted this strategy too. However, as we learn here, it also got into the food supply, and this is how it managed to spread so fast. Now, I always wondered how the infected managed to get on board airplanes and bring them crashing down, but if it wasn't those delicious in-flight meals, then you can see how it would cause a problem. Mrs. Ratner realizes how dire the situation is, and being someone who's studied the fungus all her life, she sees that there's no way to save the rest of the world beyond destroying her own. She wishes to be with her family for the final few hours she potentially has, and this is when we realize how bleak things are. She's very much accepted how inevitable the downfall of humanity is, and is almost acting as if she's on her deathbed and wanting to say her goodbyes. It's a beautifully subtle performance that further shows how far humanity has its back against the wall, and in desperate times, we will do despicable things. When wandering along the road on the way to Lincoln, we see as Joel and Ellie come across bodies that have been murdered by soldiers. Similar to Joel and Sarah, we see a parent and child with a target, and on the opposite side of this, we get a flashback in which we watch the pair boarding a military truck in order to evacuate the town. They think they're being led to safety, and as for paranoid as Bill was, he was in fact right. #Bill was right. Now, why did the humans execute the survivors? Well, we don't know exactly why, but the reason was likely down to fear. Joel theorizes that they reached the quarantine zone and that there probably wasn't enough room, so the soldiers then killed them. Now, I think the fear here is twofold, with them potentially having several reasons that made them do what they did. The first is that they were going to be turned away, and thus they'd end up roaming the wilderness and likely getting infected. This would lead to there being more people to fight, and like Mrs. Ratner said, it's safer to murder than risk the infection spreading. Now, the second reason, I think, is that the soldiers worry that these people could form their own group and that they would overthrow them. As we experience The Last of Us, we come across several factions like that who ended up storming Fedra and then replacing them. The soldiers themselves were murdered, and scorning a group of people could lead to several deaths on their side. Again, it's this idea of fear and knowing what humanity is capable of that pushes them to do it. Worried themselves that others could kill them, they strike first. And this paranoia, I think, is also very much at the heart of why humanity collapsed. The cordyceps are very much the catalyst that will cause us to fight amongst ourselves, because the lack of resources will push us into that position. As the scientist theorizes in episode 1, we lose, and it's because of a number of factors. Not only does the world come to a halt because of them, but the survivors left behind will do whatever they can to stay alive and get what they want. That's very much the message at the heart of The Last of Us, and though I don't want to get into spoilers coming down the line, that theme plays off down the road. There are those among us who would rather doom everyone else and give up what they have, and in many ways, it's what's at the heart of the show. That's why the series is so terrifying, because, though it's not going to happen, well, I hope not, there is a chance that it could, or a situation like this that will pit us against ourselves. As I said, we are our own worst enemies, and facing off against each other will bring the whole thing crashing down. And that wraps up the video, and obviously I'd love to hear your thoughts on those scenes, what you took from them, and if you agree or disagree with me. Comment below and let me know, and just to let you know, we're running a competition right now and giving away Wakanda Forever to 3 subscribers on the 15th of February. All you have to do to be on the chance of winning is like the video, make sure you subscribe with notifications on, and drop a comment below with your thoughts on the video. We pick the comments at random at the end of the month, and the winners of the last one are on screen right now, so if that's you, then message me on Twitter at HeavySpoilers. If you want something else to watch, then make sure you check out our breakdown of episode 3, which will be linked on screen right now. Got tons of Easter eggs in it, lots of things to talk about, and definitely head over there right after this. By the way, thanks for sticking through the video. I've been Paul, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care, peace.